So, a few years ago, there was a movie that was coming to theaters near you. It was The Avengers: End of Game. In this film, it would be the big one. A story spanning over a decade and 200,000 films was finally coming to a close, sort of. Before it released, I wanted to get ahead of the curve, and I made a video on Knowledge Hub about movie theaters and their inevitable decline. After all, this was a time when box office projections for the year were through the roof, and my contrarian opinion was that, even with all of this success, the death of theaters was just around the corner. And the video went out, and Endgame broke all the records. The rest of the year was dominated by Disney, with only 2 films that weren't made by them, or a part of the larger MCU. My assessment was that once Avengees had done the avenging, theater-goers would grow tired of these same old properties. Critical success matters, and while the MCU has only gotten better as time has gone on, the same cannot be said for the likes of Hollywood's B-Team. In short, that video was basically something along the lines of, "It's all downhill from here," and I proclaimed proudly that one day, in a decade or so, the movie theaters we know and love would begin to close, and everything would just premiere on streaming. And maybe that would have been true. We won't ever really know, because the next year, 2020, those heavy-hitter, ball-busting blockbusters, they never arrived. Kyogre virus changed the landscape of the industry. In a single month, these once prominent bastions of cinema seemed like they were on their deathbed. People were stuck at home, theaters were closed. Do I say theaters right? Theater? 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 I don't know. The film industry went up in flames. Countless projects were delayed, and many more were likely canceled outright. But these massive companies just couldn't let projects sit idly by and not make any money. So, some bold moves were made. Day one digital purchases, streaming releases, no theater required, that just became the norm. A bunch of 2020 major releases just came here first, because, the theater's closed, where else you gonna go? And, it seemed like theaters were gone, and the home theater had replaced it. A little bit earlier than I predicted, but whatever. And if that's where the story ended, this would just be a post-mortem of cinema, like Hollywood's golden age covered in a golden shower, or something like that. But Kyogre got tired, and returned from whence he came. It was May 2021, and the people were happy, and the theaters were open once more. So, what now? Most film studios made it perfectly clear this streaming era was just temporary. Once Kyogre left, of course we would just go back to normal. Big films would bring in big bucks, and if people went to theaters before, well, sure, they'd come back. Who wouldn't wanna go through this? And studios eagerly signed deals, making it apparent that these theatrical releases are so good you can't stream them at home. No, this is special. Personally, I got pretty used to the idea of never going to a theater again. And I have to assume I'm not alone. We've seen that the media distribution of film can be better. It can be more convenient. In the words of one Milhouse from The Simpsons, we are through the looking glass. The theater experience is one of pros and cons, but those pros are quickly dying off. A few decades ago, your average home television was this 4x3 CRT, and sound quality that fizzled with the grace of a Ford Probe. And during this time, the cinema was by far the best place to see a film. Even 10 years ago, TVs weren't that good, but now TVs, they look pretty good. Most of the time, my reaction to seeing a film on my modern fancy OLED compared to the theater experience is, wow, that really looks a lot better than it did in the theater. And that's important, because this is a downgrade, at least, if you got a new TV. Sure, the sound quality is pretty nice in there, but in a home, it can still be great. It can even be better. It just depends how much you want to pay for the speakers. In a lot of ways, this mimics the arcade versus console conflict of the 90s. Arcades used to be way ahead of the console. If you go out, you get the special experience. But then, consoles got better, and then they got on par with the arcades, and then the arcades just, nobody cares. And that's how I see this. But theaters, they're not just about the movie, right? I mean, it's a social experience. Let's all go to the movies. The popcorn, the Coca-Cola, a distinct vibe and energy that evokes both nostalgia and, disgust. But is this enough? Like, is it really enough? Everybody feels differently about this, but for me, I can't go. I can't do this again. I can't do it. Every time I go to a movie theater, it takes up half a day just to see a fucking film. I gotta make sure I don't drink too much Monster so I don't have to go take a piss during the scene when Venom's on the motorcycle. So then you're managing that all day, but then you gotta drive 20 minutes to go to the theater. You gotta wait through the ads for 10 minutes. You gotta watch the movie. You gotta take 20 minutes to go back, and then it's a long-ass time just to see a movie. You know what the alternative is? Is just sit down and turn on a fucking movie. I don't have to put a shirt on. I don't have to find my shoes. And all these extemporaneous problems affect my overall enjoyment of the film. I mean, if it's a mediocre film that I just wasted half a day to go see, I'm not gonna thinking, oh, it's so fun and silly, and it's fine. It's not great, but I wasted half my fucking day to see this, and it's not worth the time. But if it's a mediocre film and I'm watching it at home, I'm like, whatever. But there's no commitment. I can just turn it off if I don't wanna. And at the theater, even a good movie can be ruined by a bad experience. People on phones, people talking, people eating. I want control over the film. But not everybody is happy about the idea of films coming to streaming. Some do value the theater experience. Christopher Nolan, notably, despised the tactics of films going to streaming. He wanted the experience to be pure. I mean, if people watch movies at their home, they're gonna be sitting on their phone during the movie. They're gonna be, they're not gonna be paying attention. They're not gonna be watching the movie. And you know what? I kind of agree. Like, yeah, if you make a movie, you probably want people to really experience it as you intended. But to Christopher Nolan in the Hollywoods, I say this. If you were to go outside the Southern Californian landscape, cinemas aren't so fancy and accommodating. Your viewing experience might be downgraded as a morbidly obese man chews popcorn and slaps your ass on the way out. Going to a film in most cinemas means more distractions than you would have at home if you have the self-control to not turn on your phone for 2 hours. And so maybe for you, Christopher Nolan, going to a theater is a better experience, but for me and most of the world, that's not the case. And film studios are banking on the idea that people will just return like nothing changed. But that doesn't seem too likely to me, at least. Right now, out of the big blockbusters announced for the remainder of 2021, most are launching first and exclusively in theaters. And a streaming release will follow potentially a month or more after. If this expectation that people will come back fails, an expectation that is based on nothing, well, that's kinda it. Either way, it's going to be nice to have some closure to all this, because personally, I don't want to go to a movie theater ever again. As for all these, things that aren't going to streaming, I'll just wait, like I expect most people will, until they're on streaming. So, yeah. Sorry, Venom. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.